McKnight tonight. McKnight tonight.
Wrong again.
McKnight tonight. McKnight tonight.
I've seen that since university.
Funny inside, funny interviews. Football watch, McKnight tonight. McKnight tonight. Here comes McKnight tonight.
Hello and welcome to McKnight Tonight. It is Saturday the 28th of June as we stream live across YouTube and Facebook. Thanks for your company. Really appreciate you being here. And a bit of a programming note before we get into it all. We won't actually be here next Saturday as the family and I are going down to Sydney for a week, but we will be back in a fortnight's time. Yes, some birthday celebrations to take part in, so we'll be doing that. Might even live stream, who knows. Don't forget to leave a message in the comments section of this video on YouTube and Facebook, and I'll get to your feedback very shortly. But first, let's get into our hot topics. And we begin with this idea in Victoria to give police easy access to CCTV from homes and businesses. Here's how Sunrise described the plan.
There's a fresh push this morning to allow detectives ongoing access to residential security cameras. It's a proposal brought forward by former Victorian Police Detective Dave Bartlett, who says it could save millions of hours of door knocking and $200 million. It means police would have direct access to home security cameras at the click of a button. There are concerns of hyper-surveillance and privacy breaches. Mr Bartlett assures there are significant measures in place to protect people's privacy.
Yeah, look, I reckon that's scary stuff. The idea that police could just tap into your home security cameras, to me, that's a major privacy violation. And it seems others agree, with people taking to social media to vent their outrage.
It means police would have direct access to home security cameras at the click of a button.
Whoa, wind that back. Did I just hear police want 24/7 access to our home surveillance systems? You're barking up the wrong f***ing tree. What, do you want access to my baby monitors as well, you sick f***s? This does not save money for the police. This is another way to get into your house, to get into your front door, to make sure they know exactly what you're doing at all times. This has nothing to do with the crime going around.
Look, I get the outrage. There's just one problem. It's not true. There's more to this story than the cut-down simplifications Sunrise gave viewers in that short live voiceover. And look, when I first saw this headline, I thought police were demanding access to all homes and businesses too. And that would be something I am dead set against. I don't believe police or the government should have access to my personal CCTV. Just like I don't think they should have access to my social media accounts or my emails. If they want this material, then they have to ask or get a warrant. But this story isn't about that. Let's go back to Channel 7, where the 6 p.m. news gave full context to the idea. I'll let 7 News explain more.
Youth offending, home invasions and car thefts have the community on edge. But a former cop has found a tech-savvy way to catch more crooks in the act.
So the Safer Places Network is a national free platform for community to contribute to, which will allow police to access the location and the owner's details of security cameras.
Home security cameras from around the country are registered in a database. Police can then seek access to vision when a crime occurs, sending an SMS to the owner to request instant permission to obtain the footage.
Your information stays on our system and you can access it, remove it, modify it whenever you want to, and you approve every access that the police request of you.
Doesn't that change the story? So this isn't a story about police demanding access to all CCTV. This is a scheme where you opt in. As a homeowner, you can voluntarily give the footage. And this is such an important distinction. If they were looking to give police powers to just take CCTV from everyone, I think that's a major issue. But people who want to help the police, help the community, and voluntarily give over, well, that's completely different. And there's nothing wrong with that. And this is an important lesson on why you need to read the article or watch the video. Now, I came under fire last week for my commentary about David Walliams doing the Nazi salute on a comedy show. While a lot of people agreed with me, some didn't. And as you might remember, I said there was nothing wrong with a comedian doing such a thing. But a friend of mine on Facebook went off at me, saying I had moved to the hard right and admonished the very idea that it was ever okay to do the Nazi salute. So I responded to his comment by asking if he had actually watched the video. Now, he ignored that question and posted a YouTube link. He didn't answer my question. I haven't clicked the YouTube link. I would have if he answered the question. So I asked again, did you watch the video or are you just commenting based on the headline? It was a question he didn't answer. Now, I specifically included usernames, so there is no way he hadn't seen my question. I atted him. The fact that he ignored it suggests he hadn't actually watched my video to see my reasoning. And that is something that comes across time and time again, especially those on the far left who want to criticize and not listen. If he had taken the time to watch the video and still disagreed with me, fine, I'll have that debate. He may even change my mind. This is how we have a construction of ideas. I have an opinion, someone has a retort, and then I listen, I might change, or I fully believe in what I'm saying. But to start abusing me without the facts, that's lazy and ignorant. And just like your outrage doesn't make you right, neither does your ignorance. So the lesson is always read the article before you comment, and it gets a bit harder when the same station, that big problem with Sunrise is they took the concept and shrunk it down where they couldn't give the context of what was going on. And it did come across that way. So I understand why those users got confused. All right. Actors taking part in the new HBO Harry Potter TV series are facing a backlash for associating themselves with author J.K. Rowling. The backlash stems from those who disagree with the views of J.K. Rowling over transgender issues, and some fans are outraged that the creator of Harry Potter is involved with the series that she actually created. Actor John Lithgow, who will play Dumbledore, was even targeted in an open letter begging him to pull out of the series, while Nick Frost was forced to disable the comments on his Instagram post where he shared the news of his casting as Hagrid. You know, I just don't get this. I don't get the idea that actors can't take a role without facing backlash because J.K. Rowling, the creator of Harry Potter, a very successful franchise, is going to be associated with this TV series. She created it. Of course she should be. She hasn't broken any laws. She hasn't killed a person. She has a view that some people don't like. Well, we're in a free and democratic society. So here's your simple thing. Don't watch the TV series. That's 100% fine. But stop targeting actors who are earning their living by taking part in a beloved children's franchise. It's like this idea that actors have to have the lived life of the people they're playing. Now, this is a job. They're taking this job based on the characters, the script, the directors. They're not taking this job based on J.K. Rowling. It is okay for any of these actors to disagree with the views of J.K. Rowling and still take the job. You don't have to agree with everybody you work with. Life is full of contradiction. Life is a place where we have disagreements. People will respond to me with different takes on the stories I bring up, and that is okay. It's fine. It's really not a problem. And I have to say, I admire the fact these actors are standing by their decision to take part despite the backlash. As reported by Rolling Stone, when asked about the controversy, John Lithgow had told the Times of London, "I thought, why is this a factor at all? I wonder how J.K. Rowling has absorbed it. I suppose at a certain point I'll meet her and I'm curious to talk to her." Lithgow added that there was not a similar backlash to him playing Roald Dahl in the West End play Giant, even though the author was a known anti-Semite. "No one complained when I agreed to play Dahl, but I've received so many messages about J.K. Rowling," he noted. "Isn't that odd?" Yeah, it is. I don't get it. Is it just because this is the issue of the moment? And there is a very vocal group of people who will defend trans rights to the very extreme? And I'm not anti-trans, far from it. This has nothing to do with the actual subject. This is to do with the idea that actors can take roles associated with people they disagree with. People play murderers all the time. Doesn't mean they think murdering is good, but they take on a character. And as for Nick Frost, this is what he had to say about the controversy.
I signed up for was to be Hagrid. I'm a massive Potter fan. I love Mark Mylod. He's a fantastic director, and Francesca's scripts are amazing. So that's why I'm there. In terms of the other noise, that will obviously go on whether I'm there or not. So what I want to do is get a little pink umbrella and a big beard on and let that do the talking, you know.
Right. So why isn't that okay? But that's not okay by a section of the community who will hound, who will attack on social media, who will be outraged that these actors are daring to take part in this TV series. Again, whether you agree with J.K. Rowling's view or not, who cares? When you're watching Harry Potter and sitting down and enjoying the spectacle that is that series, are you sitting there thinking about the creator and what J.K. Rowling believes on a whole range of subjects? She's been very vocal, very political. And the far left loved her for a long time until she went out against trans. And it's a very complex issue for her, which I'm not going to go into. But the point is, why do people think they have to attack other working actors for taking on a role? Again, just don't watch. Really, really simple advice. Just don't watch.
It's the random life shot of the day. Where are you going today? You'll never know where you'll end up with the random life shot of the day.
Yes, it's time for our random live shot of the day. And tonight we're taking you to beautiful Tenerife. This is a live shot from Los Cristianos Beach, an ideal tourist destination in the Canary Islands. Weather-wise, it's a clear day. They reckon there might be 1 or 2 clouds creeping in. I certainly can't see any there. It's hitting a high of 26 degrees after a low of 20. What a beautiful sight. Look at that boat going through there. Random live shot of the day is one of my favourite things to do. I really love being able to go anywhere in the world in this segment, so thank you for indulging me. If you've got any suggestions for a random live shot of the day, let me know too. Hey, Amanda, can we get it into the screen so I can feel like I'm at Tenerife? Oh, is she going to hit the right button? Question without notice. Look at that. Oh, yeah. Can we take camera 1? I don't know. I'm in a mood tonight. Oh, yeah, look at that. Just this is our live studio at Tenerife, McKnight tonight. We're on location. You could do that, couldn't you? Be a bit naughty. All right, let's take a look at some of the feedback coming through to McKnight tonight. And we've got this one. Diane says, hi, Rob from Brizzy. Diane, I was up in Brizzy today. I live on the Gold Coast, but I was at ABC Studios appearing on Saturday Breakfast with Spencer Howson for his last fill-in shift. I was doing the hot topics on there and plugged McKnight tonight about 57 times. So I got my money's worth. Thanks, Diane, for being part of McKnight tonight. All right, over the page we go. Jason says he's mourning the loss of the project. And look, Jason, I certainly wasn't a fan of the last few years, but it certainly had a cultural impact on Australia. And, you know, there's a lot of jobs lost with the loss of the project. So it's not a good story. I'm not dancing on its grave by any means. Over the page we go. Dylan says, wow, that CCTV camera news stories are very different. And the thing that gets me about that, Dylan, was they were both Channel 7 stories. So the 6 p.m. news had it right. The article in the Daily Telegraph and the Herald Sun had it right. But when Sunrise, whoever wrote that, and we call them Elvia, a live voiceover, whoever wrote that, I think made some assumptions and didn't quite understand where the story was coming from because it was very clear in that 7 News story. But thanks for your feedback. Also, we've got from YouTube, from Own Your Crazy. I wish I understood why JK is such an anti-trans advocate vigilante. Look, that's an interesting one. And I have seen a note that someone says, isn't Rowling pronounced rolling? You're probably right. I got it wrong. Look, it seems to stem from not being anti-trans from J.K. Rowling, but more of pro-woman. And look, I'm not going to have this argument for her. It's her place to have that. But I think she feels that some of the things being done for trans people are come at the cost of women. But again, not my place to talk to that because I don't fully know. But there's a few things online about it. Dylan says, looks nice and tasty there, unlike here in cold Adelaide. Yeah, Tenerife certainly looks beautiful, didn't it? All right, thanks for your feedback, everyone. You are watching McKnight Tonight. And we're going to sorry, Amanda's looking at me like, where are we going? Because I was going to do Rob's rant, but I'm missing a clip. So I'm getting Jasmine to get that clip in. So yes, we're making the rundown live on the run. Sorry, Amanda. So we'll do Rob's rant. And for a little taster, I'm going to be talking about Sarah Harris from the project. So one to watch out for. And there's a lot to discuss in media. You are watching. You're ready to hit the button? McKnight Tonight.
Here comes McKnight Tonight.
All right, and we'll get to more of your feedback a little later in the show. Well, there's been a lot happening in the world of media at the moment, so I thought I'd get some insights from my mate Tim Burrows. He's the publisher of Umbrella. It's a great media and marketing website, and he joins us right now from the UK. Tim, thanks for joining us on McKnight Tonight.
Rob, looks like I picked the wrong week to go to the UK. As you say, there's been a lot happening in Australian media this week.
Yeah, but you're where the sun is, so you're doing all right. Hey, as I said, there's a lot to discuss. Let's start off with Antoinette Lattouf's win against the ABC for unlawfully sacking her. A fair judgment, do you think?
Once you read the ruling, you have to come to that conclusion. The word that's appeared a lot in coverage everywhere is vengeance, and that seems a pretty good explanation of exactly what went on. By taking that legal action, Antoinette Lattouf did end up being vindicated. She was able to make the case that it was unfair that she was taken off air ahead of time, and I think the judge's ruling has given a lot of extra firepower to the ABC's critics that it caved into lobbying.
It does seem to be that way, but I think the judge had a point when he talked about the advice she was given, and he used the word advice rather than a directive. And when I was watching the testimony by Chris Oliver Taylor, that's how it came across to me, that she really received some advice. It's best if you don't do that. We're talking about the social media posts, of course. But what gets me, Tim, is how can a fill-in presenter who's there for a week win an unfair dismissal case when they actually paid her out?
Hey, look, yeah, and obviously the judge does go into some detail. Yes, one of the benefits of being on a 24-hour flight was I boarded just a few hours after the judgment, so I was able to then to just sit and read it carefully. Obviously
lucky you.
more carefully than I might always have time. It was the ACCC did published a big inquiry this week into the digital platforms, so I got on that plane with plenty of reading to do. No, but the point that you make is a really crucial one. So much of the judge's ruling hinged on whether she'd been given advice, it might be a bad idea to post on social media, or an instruction. Now, something which has struck me is somebody who manages staff. When I'm saying to someone, look, I think it might be a good idea if we do this. In context, I'm thinking of that quite often as an instruction, but it would be a very kind of like rigorous boss who said, I am now instructing you to put this story on the homepage, or whatever the instruction might be. So it does strike me that I wonder if there's some sort of lesson for HR and the modern workplace about when is a suggestion really an instruction. And clearly, what this does seem to say is that when something important is going to hinge on it, managers may have to be more specific than is obvious at the time.
Yeah, I think in this case, you can't just say, I think it's a good idea if you don't post. You need to say, we cannot have you posting while you're here. Hey, What do you think about having cameras in court? I've been watching the Karen Reid trial, which has cameras in court. You can watch the replays, you can see it all. I watched the live stream of this court case and the decision, but once the live stream's over, it's not available, it's taken down. Do you think court cases like this, or any court cases, should be made public and left online?
I guess as a journo, I'm a believer in open justice unless there's a really good reason not to. It feels like the assumption should be the public should see justice being done. We saw that, for instance, in the Ben Robert Smith trial, for
Yeah,
instance, the defamation trial, where there was a real opportunity for the public to understand the nuance, or similarly
that's the
with
key.
the Bruce Lehman defamation trial. It's and particularly if you get to see the judge, even if it's just their 5 or 10 minute summary of their findings, you get so much more nuance than you would get in a 200-word article on a website. So
And
I'm,
also
yeah,
when the 6 p.m.
you know,
news does it, and if they could use grabs rather than having to read out what was said in court.
Yeah, that's yes is almost the next stage, isn't it? Because at the moment there are an awful lot of conditions about what can be used.
Mm.
So unless the media specifically got permission, they're not allowed, for instance, to record that stream to use later. Now, with this week's finding, a number of news media outlets had already got permission from the judge to record the judge's part of the ruling. So that was why we will have heard
Yeah.
some more from the judge, because those people specifically got permission. But it's certainly not routine yet, and I suspect that the courts being the courts, it will be some time before we hit that moment.
Yeah, I'd like to see a change. But moving on, let's talk about the under 16 social media ban, because this week the e-safety commissioner spoke at the National Press Club and made this observation about the big tech companies.
Very few of these technologies and platforms were created with children in mind or with safety as a primary goal. Today, safety by design is not the norm, it is the exception. Very few of these platforms and technologies continue to focus on engagement of profit. User safety is now being demoted, dumped, or deprecated altogether. So while the tech industry regresses backwards, we must move forwards.
Tim, it's hard to disagree with that, but is banning under 16s from social media the right course of action?
Yeah, I suppose we maybe want to just wind back to last year when the legislation came in, which was about, yeah, effectively, at least on paper, banning 16-year-olds from under 16s from social media. Now, clearly what we're still seeing are lots of practical issues about, is it possible? But I suppose
Yeah.
what it does is it gives parents a weapon in the armory. You asking for my opinion on whether I think it's the right thing. Yes, I do. I think there's plenty of evidence that the human brain has developed over millennia to the stimulation we had, growing up on the savannah or whatever, evolving over, many millennia. Suddenly this massive system for making people addicted to that dopamine hit of content and approval and all of those things that social media brings. Brains, I mean, let alone under 16s. I sometimes think maybe we should make it for under 60s.
That's a fair point. But look, I disagree with the ban. I think as a parent, that should be my choice, whether I let my kids go on social media or not. She has a point about what the tech giants want. They just want us to consume. They manipulate their algorithms. They're no good at dealing with conflicts. Like if someone comes out and attacks me, I have no recourse. I can't get them blocked if they defame me or anything like that. This isn't just an under 16s issue. It's an all platform issue. So if the Australian government put rules in that force these tech giants to change the behaviour on their platforms and give better outcomes for people who had grievances, I'd be right behind that. This just seems like a simplistic idea. And now we're talking about YouTube. She said she wants YouTube to be part of the ban. YouTube's obviously come out and said, bad idea. And it is a bad idea. Kids use YouTube for educational and entertainment.
Yeah, and hey, I mentioned earlier sitting on the plane reading the ACCC Digital Platforms Inquiry report. One of the central things in there is just making that point, as the ACCC has for a number of years, as the Australian Competition and
Mm.
Consumer Commission, that the platforms have too much power. It's not a fair playing field. So effectively, certainly at the moment, they almost get to do what they want. That's the argument. And the issue with these big platforms is not going to accuse them of being immoral, but they're certainly amoral. It doesn't really matter to them. Doing the right thing comes quite a long way down.
Well, you actually made the point in your newsletter where you said years ago you were on the side of the big tech, but now you're on the side of the government because big tech hasn't done. I don't want to paraphrase you, but it seemed to be that you thought big tech hasn't done the right thing.
Yeah, look, I'm probably the one, but I put back on that is I'm not sure I'd necessarily position myself in the same camp as the government because my argument is that the government hasn't actually overall um, been particularly strong at creating a level playing field for the platforms. And actually,
Mm.
and in fairness, that's governments all around the world, not just the Australian government and not just Labor. It was broadly the same story under the coalition before that. But yeah, it feels like where we have existing now with all of the major platforms. So in the day we were talking about Facebook when it comes to advertising Google, which includes that as the owner of YouTube, but also the likes of TikTok coming through now and potentially the big AI platforms, is market failure. Those platforms become too strong
Mm.
that no one individual can stand up against them. So that then takes governments to do that. And it's really tough. It's a moving target. These guys lobby hard. They've got longer memories and work on longer spans. So each time a government begins to make progress, well, the government probably changes and they hang on in there. So it feels like over time we edge towards a little more kind of regulation around them, but we're always just a little bit behind the eight ball. And hey, every year that goes by without any of them paying very much local tax is another year that's bad for the economy.
Could not agree more. And when I was watching Leo Puglisi from Six News, when he was fronting the Parliament to when they were questioning this, when they were doing when they were questioning all the different players, those politicians, a lot of them just seem to have no idea. But look, before I let you go, because I know you want to enjoy the UK sunshine, Kyle Sanderlands has shared his thoughts on the failed Melbourne launch of his Kyle and Jackie O program down there. And he has said he was at a panel, he was talking to his boss was there, and he looked at his bosses and he said, well, I blame you guys, in all honesty. I blame you guys. What we should have done is rolled us out nationally from day one, put our balls in our hands and effing moved forward. None of this, I'll put your little toe in the water. I think he's right. I think a national launch would have been better than going alone into a city that, doesn't particularly like anything from Sydney. He would have had a better story to tell because I think he will be a success in Brisbane.
Yeah, look, I suppose first things first is I thought it was a good idea for them to take them certainly eventually national, but with Melbourne as the same as the first step. Kyle Sandilands, Jackie Henderson, whether you like them or dislike them, they are talented radio people.
Absolutely.
And it seemed a waste for ARM Media to only have them live in Sydney. So I absolutely was on the record that they had the right strategy. Which has clearly not worked. The question is, was it execution? Was it strategy? And there's a lot of hindsight now. And nobody was saying this stuff at the time, but there certainly is hindsight that they might have been a better fit for Queensland. So could have been Queensland first.
Well, you
or
say no
national
one
first.
said that.
But go on, Ralph. I think I feel like somebody might be about to blow a bit of a whistle for themselves.
Yeah, McKnight is right. I always do that, mate. Look, what I said at the time, I said traditionally anything from Sydney does not go well in Melbourne. I did say though, if anyone can do it, it's Carl and Jackie O. So you could have said I hedged my bets, but I
thought you were going to say you were going to claim you said they should come to Queensland first, which I think everyone says now should have been what happened, but very few people were saying that at the time.
Look, I'm going to have to go back to the videotape. I do believe I said that. But my point was that going into Melbourne was always going to be tricky because I have made a lot of news promos for both markets in Sydney and Melbourne. I've done a lot of work in Melbourne, and there certainly is an anti-Sydney rhetoric in Melbourne. I'm not having a go at that. It's just the way it is. So the idea that a big brash Sydney show was going to come in and overtake Melbourne, there was always going to be a backlash to that, pushing the content to the side, but also turning Jason Lauren into underdogs, which is what happened because they were the narrative was they got kicked out of their jobs to make way for these Sydney people. And yeah, I definitely think Brisbane would have been the first go, but I think now hit the national button and just do it.
Yeah, look, I think that's my view, but also I think it's something they have to do because they have a 10-year contract with um, Carl Sunderland's Jackie Henderson. Over the 10 years, that amounts to something like $200 million. So they have to find a way of monetizing that across multiple markets. And it's finding a different story. So at the moment, across Sydney and Melbourne, they're averaging something like 130,000 listeners or something, which, believe it or not, for radio is actually not too bad. It's not TV numbers, obviously, but that becomes a national story. That becomes a different sort of conversation as and when that happens. But then the other thing about the kind of the Melbourne factor to bear in mind is to win in radio, you don't need to win the majority of the audience. You at the moment they're sort of languishing on a 5 or 6% share, and they're looking like complete losers. But if they edge up to a 10 or 11% share in Melbourne, they look like complete winners. So
Absolutely.
you haven't actually got to take everyone with you. It's better to get a core of dedicated fans than a smaller group of people who kind of quite like you. So it's a long game, and ARN are stuck with them for a long time yet. So they're really incentivized to make it work, even if that does involve the CEO of ARN, Kieran Davis, having to sit on stage with Kyle and have Kyle, I imagine with tongue in cheek, but Kyle kind of blame him. Whereas the truth of the matter is, an awful lot of the problem was the execution
Yeah.
of the show. They didn't make any sort of certainly in terms of the content. Obviously, it's always been edgy, smutty, not the stuff you want to have the kids listening to in the car. But there were also no real concessions to letting the audience get to know them as well. They were just assuming that they would catch up. So yeah, I think the truth of the matter is we still actually don't know for sure whether it was the right or wrong strategy. We just know that they executed it very badly.
I would argue it was the wrong strategy. I think Brisbane would have been a much kinder market. Carl's and Jackie, I think, is from Brisbane, from Queensland, so they would have had that hometown advantage in a way. But Tim Burrows, it is always fascinating talking to you. Tim is the publisher of Mumbrella and Unmade. Thanks for joining us on McKnight tonight. Enjoy the English summer.
Thanks for the invitation, Rob.
Okay, it is time finally for Rob's rant, and this week I want to talk about Sarah Harris, someone I truly admire. Now, I don't expect her to see this, but there is something I need to get off my chest regarding the false narrative being spun by faceless leakers who always think they know better. This week she spoke with Joe Hildebrand on his The Real Story podcast, and at first she talked about joining Studio 10.
Speaking of the old days at Studio 10, you came over from Channel 9 to Channel 10, which I'm very glad that you did.
Rob McKnight, who started Studio 10, he was like, do you want to come over and just trial for this thing? We did the screen test. It was with Ita as well. I was like, this is amazing. We've got to do this. And it was incredible. I loved every second of that show. In fact, I've got a gift for you.
No.
That's a part of the Studio 10 set, which is now in a skip bin at Channel 10. It's not coming back.
Okay, so
piece of TV history right there, Joe. You should be grateful and thankful.
A piece of balsa wood, and it's got a screw through it.
Yeah.
Really brings back memories. How I got screwed on Studio 10.
Didn't we all, Joe? Didn't we all? Look, I didn't just play that clip because I got a name check, and I'm She's very lovely to me and I appreciate it. But the reason I played that clip is because I want to talk about a story on news.com.au recently that covered Sarah's move to Channel 10. The story by Annette Sharp was titled "The Sacking of Project Star Sarah Harris Could Come as a Warning to Other Young Women." Now, the story talks about why it was a bad career decision for Sarah to leave Nine. In part, it says, TV sources are of the view that with 3 failed programs behind her at 10, Studio 10, Shark Tank and The Project, Harris with her Girl Next Door Every Woman appeal may have to explore opportunities away from free-to-air television going forward. Executives at Nine have long been of the view she made a miscalculation when she jumped ship to go to 10 in 2013. Harris was a 32-year-old Nine employee who had become the regular understudy for morning show anchor Sonia Kruger on Nine. She also replaced Layla McKinnon on Weekend Today during McKinnon's maternity leave. After a decade at Nine, after working her way up from researching and reporting on National 9 News, Harris was on the brink of securing a prominent full-time role, Nine sources said last week. I call bullshit. Nine were treating Sarah like crap at the time. She wasn't even on a full-time contract, which is why she was able to jump over to Channel 10 so quickly. While it's true she had been doing some hosting work, these same executives who are spinning this story to Annette Sharp neglect to mention how they were treating her at the time. She saw an opportunity at Studio 10 and good on her, she took it. And I am so glad she did. She was the heart of that show and helped it find success. Also, Sarah left Studio 10 before it was axed. It was axed after she left, so you can't pin that on her. And the first couple of seasons of Shark Tank were a rating success. In fact, I seem to think the show bombed when Sarah was only doing voiceovers and not actually appearing in it. And the show wasn't about her anyway. She was essentially a host. And with the greatest respect to Sarah, she wasn't the main feature of the show, so people weren't tuning in to see Sarah Harris. But also, let me be very clear on something. Sarah Harris was not fired by 10. They wanted her to be part of the new 10 News Plus show. The Australian has reported that, and I can confirm this is absolutely true. I knew that, but I wasn't allowed to talk about it. It was Sarah's decision to walk away and take a break. But there was one part of the interview with Joe that, I've got to be honest, really upset me. Take a look.
It was interesting. Beautiful Carrie Bickmore sent me a text message afterwards when it was first announced. She said she was beautiful, and I said to her, "I'm sorry, I couldn't keep your show running." And she's like, "No, that's not what it. Don't be silly, and that's just the industry." But I did feel like that. Like, she started that show, and I think when you start a show, it's like raising a child, and now this 16-year-old belligerent television show is...
To quote Robin Williams in Good Will Hunting, it's not your fault.
They've got great chemistry. And that's right, Sarah. It was not your fault. The project had already lost favour with viewers by the time you came along. And to be honest, we all know it should have been cancelled when Kerry left. It was past its use by date then. It is my belief that if anyone could help save the show, it was Sarah Harris. But it wasn't to be. I'm not sure you were the right fit for that show anyway. On Studio 10, you could have a proper discussion and there was time for your personality to shine. In fact, I believe that the original version of Studio 10 would have been a perfect replacement for the project. Studio 10 had an essence and it had a vibe and a connection with audiences, even though Channel 10 didn't understand the show. It's why viewers fell in love with Sarah and fell in love with the show. Sarah Harris is a true talent. And I hope TV programmers see her value because she shines on the screen. She engages viewers in a way many presenters can't. And if Channel 9 are holding on to this thing that, she wasn't loyal to us, she went to another network, she got the chance to shine at 10. Don't begrudge her that. Grab her. Use her. And if executives are holding on to that crap, more for you, and it says everything that's wrong with the TV industry. If you're not employing people because you're upset by something they said or something they did, you are doomed to fail. And that is what is happening with the TV industry right now. It is failing and it is dying. And why? Because you won't suck up your pride and hire someone like Sarah. And I'm not just talking about Sarah. I see this time and time again. Put the egos aside. Hire the best people, not your mates who keep failing show after show after show after show. Get new blood in. Get new people with ideas. Try something, because otherwise it's just going to die. And for anyone who asks, yes, I do love Sarah. I'm very loyal. In this industry, I am loyal to people that I love and respect. And if I'm not loyal to you, there's a reason. All right, let's get to your feedback, because it is coming through thick and thin, and I do appreciate that. So thank you. First of all, we have Lynn McKnight saying, photo of the day suggestion, Jervis Bay, South Coast, New South Wales. Mum, that is my mum. It's not called photo of the day. Amanda, can you pull up the opener to random live shot of the day? Well, see, Mum, if you can guess what it's called.
It's the random live shot of the day.
There's a clue.
Where are you going today? You never know where you'll end up with the random live shot of the day.
Random live shot of the day, Mum. Okay, let's get to more of your feedback. Oh, Mum. There's photo of the day, so Mum will update that. Arthur Rutledge, first time texter-inner, I think. Enjoying the show as always. Thank you, Arthur. Really appreciate that. Over the page we go. Gareth John says, your anti-woke stuff is tiresome and sounding like Sky News, whether it's J.K. Rowling or the project. Fair comment, Gareth. Fair enough. Thank you for the feedback. I'll cop that. You know what? I think I can be seen as anti-woke because I just see the way and look, people have differing ideas of what woke is, but one of the things that I think that upsets me, and maybe I'm just getting old, I'm 52, maybe I'm getting hard right. I see myself as a centrist, but maybe you don't. I think one of the issues that I see is there is people with hard views, whether left or right, but here we're focusing on the left. I don't think extremism on any side is good, okay? But what we see is people who I would define as woke force that opinion on society. You know, they expect everything to change. Now, you might say, and maybe I'm defending myself too much, maybe you've struck a chord, a nerve or something. But even on ABC today, we talked about the neutral terms that schools are talking about. And I do think you can say boys and girls, but I do think we have to include people who are transgender and things like that. I don't know what that term is, but the point is I don't think I'm as left or right or hard right that you might think. But look, I do appreciate your feedback. Thank you for sending it in. Over the page we go. Gavin says, welcome to 1984 and social credits. Yeah, well, that's the thing. The government are dictating what you can and can't see. Okay, over the page. Thanks, Gavin. Dylan says, I understand the idea of a ban and it may reduce the amount of cyberbullying between kids, but ultimately kids will find ways around the ban. VPN, absolutely. We don't even know how they're going to implement this technology to stop kids. I'll give you an example. On my TV at home, we've got YouTube connected to it. And interestingly, a lot of people are now watching YouTube through their smart TVs. My kids can access that. And I just think this is a family decision about what is and isn't appropriate for your kids. All right, Radio Notes podcast says, Kyle and Jackie O are like Jamie Oliver in Adelaide. As Tim states, they have the 10-year contract. Answer will fall in there. That's right. They have a 10-year contract to go national. They will be going national, and we'll see what happens with those local markets. I do think Brisbane has a better chance than Melbourne. Thank you, Radio Notes. We've got Matthew also on YouTube. I'm loving these YouTube feedback. We get Carl and Jackie O in regional SA in the evening. Yes, they do the Hour of Power. That's quite correct, Matthew. Over the page we go. More feedback coming in. Own Your Crazy. Sarah Harris is a brilliant television personality and overall amazing human being. Yes, I agree with that. Thank you, Own Your Crazy. And we've still got more feedback coming in. Jimmy says, 3 failed programs. Studio 10 lasted 10 years and the project lasted 16 years. How is that a fail? Shark Tank rated well too. What a silly article. You know what? That was the only part of the article I took issue with the writer of the article. Everything else was given to her by people wanting to stir the pot. Or had a grudge against Sarah for leaving Nine. Whatever their motivation, that's why I take all that with a grain of salt. That was the only thing I feel Annette got wrong in her article from her point of view. Over the page we go. Andrew says, it was truly an honour to meet you, Sarah, Joe, and so many others. Thank you for the incredible opportunity to gain insight into the world of TV broadcasting. I've made lifelong friends and will treasure the experience for years to come. Grateful for every moment. Thank you. What a lovely thought, Andrew. Thank you very much. And thank you for your feedback. Now, before we go tonight, I think we've got time for a back end quickie. This is where I bring you a quick item at the back end of the show. And in TV, there's an old rule that if you leave your phone on and it rings, you have to buy the crew a slab of beer. Well, I hope journalist Caroline Wilson has remembered that rule because she was recently caught out on Channel 7.
I don't think Chris Scott is considering, I'm sorry, that's my telephone. What a terrible time for that to happen.
Oh, that'll be in the swap. That's a new one. That'll be in the swap.
Yes, that's a slab of beer from Caro for the crew. That is the rule. That is the rule in television, that if you leave your phone on, you have to give a case of beer. So I hope they enjoyed that. And that brings us to the end of this edition of McKnight Tonight. Do me a favour, go and watch old episodes on YouTube. We're trying to get those hours up. Once we get past 3,000 verified public views in 365 days, we reach the next level, and I might even be able to start monetising this bugger. So your help on that would be greatly appreciated. We're getting there, but it just takes time. Meanwhile, we are taking a week off as the family and I head down to Sydney, so we will see you in a fortnight's time for McKnight Tonight. See you then. Cheers.
McKnight Tonight. It's good.